All right, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin back again. And we're going to take a quick look at Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah. We've covered a little bit of Christian mysticism, Sufism, which is the Islamic branch of mysticism. So it's about time we give the Jews a chance here. And so, let's take a look. This is done by the BimBam YouTube channel.
BimBam, thank you, ma'am.
At the center of Kabbalah, and by that I mean an ancient mystic stream of Judaism, not this place in LA, at the center of Kabbalah is a book called the Zohar, which is a book that collects knowledge from even older Jewish mystical works. It looks at verses in the Bible and ideas in Judaism through the lens of the 10 Sefirot. Put simply, each of these Sefirot is a way to interact with an aspect of God. Through these Sefirot, the Zohar created new ways to think about lots of the Bible and really to think about Judaism in general, mystical ways. Now, the Zohar was written in the 13th century in a culture where there was both intellectual curiosity and deep religious fervor. In this culture, this was in northern Spain, on one hand, they were influenced by the teachings of Maimonides, who was a Jewish thinker with a Greek philosophical perspective. So he
was it thrice great Moses Maimonides? Oh, is there two different Maimonides?
I'm not sure. The first time I've been introduced to him.
From Moses to Moses, there's been none like Moses. I know some of these terms are rattling loose in my brain.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all.
He said, you can't ever know what God does, just what God doesn't do. In other words, you shouldn't ever assume God's actions have a direct effect on you. It's an intellectual way to approach God. And then they were influenced by Christian Europe's religious fervor. God has a direct effect on me. So how can God simultaneously have an effect and not have an effect? Mysticism's answer is there are multiple aspects to God. We can't interact with God, who is unknowable, let's say the Ein Sof, but we can interact with 10 constricted aspects of God, the Sefirot. A small group of people wrote about this in 13th century northern Spain. One was Nachmanides in his interpretations of the Torah.
It's kind of interesting because to me it seems like what he's trying to say there is that you can't directly have access to God, but you can... like if you compartmentalize God, there are these tiny little subsectors of God that can help you get some type of a connection to the direct source, maybe?
One of the because I knew somebody that was into Moses Maimonides, and they were talking about some of his writings or something. It was in that field, that wheelhouse. Yeah. And they were saying that one of the ways that in this Jewish mysticism way of talking about God was to list everything God isn't. And through that, you kind of get access. There is no depth or width or space to God. God is not this. God is not that. And it's like a huge list of what God isn't. And then that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like experiencing God in the unknown. It's like this is everything I do know. And then there's this, what do I not know?
Yeah, but whenever we get into this type of thing, whatever kind of mysticism we're looking at, it always gets into the realm of frustrating to me. Because it's the same thing as, a certain type of Christian coming up to you and being like, it's a peace that passes all provability. What do you mean? Like where do you experience this peace? Is it it's in the realm that's not seeable, knowable, or feelable? I'm like, that's not that didn't count as anything then. Why isn't there a revolution in religion and spirituality that's like nothing more real than exactly what is? And people just touching fingers, you sense it? Yeah, I sense it too. So we know that that's real.
That's hyper-rationalism and scientism.
But even, let's drop all the concepts and just put our foreheads together or something and get real uncomfortable, because it's getting frustrating when people point at something that's not there, And we've met some compelling people. I've, locked myself in a room and meditated for hours till I came out and I was like, I think I'm enlightened. I've done it even too. But for run-of-the-mill, workaday life, living in the world, and somebody comes up and they're like, giggling and laughing. They're so enlightened and, having such some experience of God, but it points to nothing. All they can tell you is that it's awesome, and if you listen to me, you'll have it too. You know, that can get real frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Why
I definitely hear
Why
you.
point to nothing? Why only point to what is? Why not do that? You know, because it's a waste of time, and, you know, structures fall apart if you do that. That's called hedonism. You know, is that why? Let's just honestly regard that. I'm ranty this week. I'm ranty, folks.
That's okay.
Torah. And the other was Moshe de Leon, who collected older texts that formed into the Zohar. These older texts focused on trying to understand some difficult sections in the Bible, like the logic behind creation, or the chariot vision of Ezekiel, the apocalyptic visions of Daniel. Notably, only a small group of scholars read any of the Kabbalistic texts, including the Zohar, as it was generally accepted that studying them might drive you mad. That is, until 250 years later. So, 60 years after the Spanish Inquisition, Isaac Luria and Spot entered the picture. To greatly generalize, at this time, Jews were in a down place. The whole focus of the religion was on living in the past and being sad about where we are now, not in Spain having fun. Luria had this revelatory idea to take the principles of Kabbalism found in the Zohar and evolve them. Instead of it mostly being about understanding the Sefirot, Kabbalism was now about collecting sparks. Luria said the world was originally a perfect vessel, but it was destroyed, and it's up to us to collect all of the pieces. Each time we do a good deed, we're collecting these sparks and taking another step towards the Messiah. For instance, the way a person held a Kiddush cup could create a spark, as holding it in a certain way showed off God's name. Lots of traditions.
Super interesting, that concept of people, all of us, like collectively as a whole, through good deeds and actions, creating the Messiah. Interesting idea.
Yeah,
Like
for
through
sure.
our good deeds, all collectively making a Messiah, rather than it being some separate thing that comes. We're actually building it. We're building the Messiah. Interesting.
Right.
Jews do to this day were created by Luria and people that followed him. Kabbalat Shabbat, for instance. So with Luria, instead of being sad about the past, suddenly Judaism was about looking towards the future and the hope of salvation by the Messiah. And these thoughts were wildly popular. It got people to follow many more traditions, and it significantly spread Kabbalah. It continued to grow until it brought about the Messiah. It brought about someone who claimed to be the Messiah, and this threw a major wrench in people's faith in the movement. So the story continues with this guy, Shabtai Tzvi. He was a false Messiah.
Yeah.
He was a person who almost brought down Judaism.
Stay tuned. If this video does good, we'll have to check that out, because I'm fascinated to see. But it's funny that someone was like, oh, I did it. You manifested me through your good actions.
That's the part that I love the most. And I wish we had a whole nother video just to talk about that phenomenon. And like the whole careful what you wish for and the somebody stepping up to the plate phenomenon. I love that. You know, because in a world where we grew up with Christianity and all these ideals about Jesus and stuff like that, it was always so hard to affect it. You know, you go to church and they'd be like, if somebody slaps you, let them slap you thrice. You know what I mean? And then you'd go into the world and be like, I'm not living like this anymore. And nobody could do it, and it was full of hypocrisy. I love the idea of somebody like showing up as the, like, I'm doing it. I'm actually filling the role. And people being like, you know, having a problem with that. I love that, because that's.
I get a sense here that a lot of people followed this guy, apparently. So,
Oh, hell yeah.
So, but it makes for an interesting story. I want to know about that. But anyway, this one here, we'll end it here. And if you did like our reaction to this, please don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everybody. Until next time, stay spiritual.